Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, hi, I'm Ola. This is my little corner of the internet and we are gonna be talking books today. This is going to be a December reading vlog. And if you see me dressed the same way in some clips after this, that's because they were all filmed at the same time. Because did I film an intro before? No, I didn't. I'm gonna be reading in this vlog, which should be fun. Like, I'm pretty excited to film it. I've already got some footage and some things that I've read, so I can't wait to talk about all of these. Let's get into the video now. So, I basically am time traveling all over this video, wearing the same thing and looking the same way. But I think I actually look like more alive today. So, I'm here to talk about the story that I have finished. And I believe that where I was with this reading vlog when I was reading was, I think I've read 9 lives, which really went over my head. It was very weird, and it was about clones, I believe. But I think when I was doing this reading vlog, I was actually reading the story called Things. If I'm gonna be honest with you, oh no, wait. Now that I saw the last sentence, I do remember what it was. It was okay. Like, it definitely was a little bit like meh at first, but it got a little bit better. And obviously, like, the thing with short stories is that when they get good, they end because they're a short story, right? So you get the beginning where you're like super confused, and then you're like so into it, and it suddenly ends. And some of these stories, like, I really wish were sort of like extended a little bit, just even so they would be a little bit of a short book in itself. But I'm not sure if that will work. Short stories leave a different impact on you than like if they were like extended and there would be a lot of things that you don't need. You know what I mean? So Things was like very good, and at some point I was reading it and I was bored. Right? And then suddenly it got a little bit better near the end, and then it ended. Would I like recommend? I don't know. If you're gonna be reading this book, I would recommend you read all of the stories just to see how your taste varies in these stories, because these stories are very different from each other. Some are like, you know, similar themes, but they're different overall. This story, A Trip to the Head. Do I remember what it's about? Not really. What was it? Oh yeah, A Trip to the Head. Okay, this was a little bit strange because it's like people who like don't know who they are in a way. And it was like about a person who like knew they were human, but they didn't remember who they were. And they were like, oh, maybe you're this person, maybe your name is this, and maybe your name is that. Like, at least you know you're human. And it was sort of like, what am I reading? And then, like, I'm gonna read you a passage from this because, like, I actually underlined some things because they were like, Listen to this line. Perhaps he did not know these trees personally. Like, I'm sorry? There's this passage. How can I say who I am when I can't say what I am? How would you find out what you are? If I had anything, if I did something that would make you be? Of course it would. I never thought of that. Well, then, it doesn't matter what name you're called by. Anyone will do. It's what you do that counts. Blank stood up. Blank because, like, they don't know his name, so it's basically blank because, you know, like, she can't really know if it's a man or if it's a woman either, if it's a human or if it's not a human, and he doesn't know either because he doesn't know his name, he doesn't know anything about himself. It's really weird in that way. See, that's the sort of sci-fi that she writes. It's sort of crazy because it's hard to wrap your head around that in a way. For some reason, I don't know. Blank stood up. I will exist, he stated firmly. I will call myself Ralph. Then there's this passage. Why? Sex is real. I mean, really real. It's having and acting in its intensest form. When a man takes a woman, he proves his being. I see, but what if he's a woman? I was Ralph. Try being Amanda, the other said sourly. Huh? I literally wrote like, OMG, huh? Lol. What? I'm nobody. At least, said the other, you know you're human. Oh, what good's that? With no name, no sex, no nothing. I might as well be a bristleworm or a tree sloth. You might as well, the other agreed, be Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre? I don't know how to say it. I certainly am not Jean-Paul Sartre. I am myself, and so saying he found himself to be, in fact, himself. His name is Louis D. Charles, and he knew it as well as he knew his own name. There he was. What? It's so weird. That's what I'm talking about. I think that I've read this like on the reading blog as well, because we're getting to the faster than empires and more slow now. That was such a strange story. Sometimes so cool to be so confused and to be so like, what the hell did I just read? Because that makes stories memorable as well. I think that's also a charm in itself, but it wasn't my favorite story, even though I did underline things. Faster than empires and more slow. I love the title so much, and it's actually from Marvel to his coin mistress. Our vegetable love should grow faster than empires and more slow. How pretty! Oh my god, I love it so much. That is so pretty. This was like a regular science fiction story, according to what she said, and this is like what she said in the forward to this story. Unless physical action reflects psychic action, unless the deeds express the person, I get very bored with adventure stories. Often it seems that the more action there is, the less happens. Obviously, my interest is in what goes on inside, inner space and all that. We all have forests in our minds. Forests unexplored, unending. Each of us gets lost in the forest, every night, alone. I think that this is so beautiful. Like, she writes in such a beautiful way and expresses herself. It's so great. And I also agree, I truly, truly love the complexity of people, the complexity of characters that I read about. It's usually what really makes me love a book. And I don't want to say that I don't pay attention to the plot, because I do, but it's usually the characters that make me love the book the most. Especially when there's things about them that are so complex that they're trying to figure out, and that you are trying to figure out along with them. She really delivers in that sense, because she loves that as well, you know? I don't want to say like what each story was like exactly about. This was a very nice one, because it really got like philosophical at some point. Like, it really got deep with like love and kindness and human emotions, and like a lot of empathy was involved here. One thing that they had that was like pretty freaking awesome is a 32-hour day. Because then if you go to work for 8 hours, you have way more time left for yourself. How crazy is that? Like, why isn't that a thing? It'll be so much fun. So I'm gonna read you one thing that I underlined that I think is going to give you an idea of when I talk about these themes that are going on in the story, and like what I mean when I say that it's philosophical. Do you think the average human is a well of loving kindness? My choice is to be hated or to be despised. Not being a woman or a coward, I prefer to be hated. That's rot, self-pity. Every man has, but I am not a man, Osden said. There are all of you, and there is myself. I am one. How good is that? Yeah, it got pretty interesting at some point. Like right here. Got pretty interesting at that point, right? By then I started like underlining a lot. And for example, this thing is what also hooked me a lot. It was at this point that this book like really hooked me and I really wanted to finish it, because I just thought that, oh yeah, like I'm getting closer to the end and these stories are just like progressively getting better in certain aspects. So I really like that. It was One of Us. That's right, isn't it? No, don't answer. Only tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm not. Of course, there are animals on this planet. 10 of them. I don't care who it was. It doesn't matter, does it? It could have been me, just now. I realized that. I didn't understand how it is, Osnan. You can see how difficult it is for us to understand. But listen, if it were love instead of hate and fear, is it never love? No. It's just a sharp no. Why not? Why should it never be? Are human beings also weak? That is terrible. Never mind, don't worry. Keep still. At least right now, it isn't hate, is it? Sympathy at least. Concern. Well-wishing. This is like a conversation when something happened to Osnan. And Osnan is basically an empath. He's an empath who like feels to the extremes. And something happened where he was like laying in bed in recovery and basically reciprocated the feelings that he felt from others towards them. He was basically a emotion detector wherever he went. Putting myself in his shoes, that must have been so hard, because you can like feel all of these emotions of people towards you and you can feel that they're hate. Like how crazy is that? There's also another quote. In great Hainish, indeed, there is one word, onta, for love and for hate. Which is like so crazy, right? Even if this is just for this story. This story was like really good near the end, like from half point until the end, so good. There had been love once, a terrified child, suffocating in the tidal rush and battering of the huge emotions of adults. A drowning child, saved by one man. Taught to breathe, to live, by one man. Given everything, all protection and love by one man. Father, mother, God, no other. So good. Oh my god. The thing they feared, and yet part of their fear itself. The story has so many great moments. What one fears is alien. The murderer is an outsider, a foreigner, not one of us. The evil is not in me. This is the reason why I love Omelas so much as well, because it sort of follows a similar structure, similar like philosophical like thinking, things that make you ponder yourself, you know? Like look at this, like I was underlining like crazy, and I love this story so much. This would be like a 4-star story, or maybe even more if I thought about it for longer. But it was so good. It was like very sci-fi, but it was the sort of sci-fi that like, even though it started off sort of like, what? It went in such a good direction, and I truly loved it. Below. Story, very good. I really enjoyed it. I underlined quite a few things, and it was pretty crazy how this went, I guess. I didn't understand what was happening in the I feel like this is a common theme with these stories. I don't understand what's happening in the beginning, and from the half of it I'm like, oh good. Or like 1/4 is non-understandable, 3/4 is fine. Yeah, I truly enjoyed this story, The Stars Below. the title was very pretty, and the story itself was like really nice. About there was an astronomer who basically got like chased out, let's say. And this line was so pretty. Was it my arrogance in daring to describe your works? But how could I help it, Lord, when you let me see the endless fields of stars? The endless field of stars. Because he was an astronomer and that was his job, you know, like he made it his job to look at the sky and find constellations and look at like the galaxies and stuff. And it was so beautiful, and the way that this went for so you could understand the stars below was so interesting as well. It sort of showed how like people can see you as this crazy person, but you actually might be onto great things. They just give you the benefit of the doubt, because in the end, in this one, like it all makes sense. Like, listen to this. Not seeing the sky, why one cannot know the turning of the earth. All the processes of time, the sun's bright arch and the moon's phases, the planets' dance, the weaning of the constellations around the pole star, the vaster weaning of the seasons of the stars, all these were lost, the warp on which his life was woven. Here there was no time. Oh my God, how can it offend you to be praised? All I ever saw in my telescopes was one spark of your glory, and this fragment of the order of your creation. Like, it's just so prettily written, and there are certain things that are just like, darkness followed him and went ahead of him. I don't know why I love this so much, but I underlined it because it's just so pretty. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, at some point, you just underline so many things because they are either like true, or this is something that you can think about, or it's something that is just so beautifully written. And this is one of the stories that was that for me. Like, look at this. It's crazy. I loved it. Like, it was so good. This is another one that would be like 4 or 4.5. Vision. A quote that we start with. I saw eternity the other night, like a great ring of pure and endless light. Henry Vaughan. I think that's how you say it here. This story is exactly the one that I already talked about, but you are going to see it at the end of this like clip about this book. It's gonna be in the summary, I guess. A story where it's talked about whether it's a good thing if you were to know the truth of everything, you know, about like the things that we question, and if we had nothing else to question, like would there be a reason to live? I think that's the sort of way that my brain like took it. But it's all well written. If you're interested in something like that, I would completely recommend the story, because it was very good in that sense that it really made you think that, oh yeah, like if I knew like why we're all here, like what is the reason of this, what is the point of all of this, like we can ponder and we can question things and we can like wonder, and it's something, this is sort of like a quest. If you like actually question and wonder about these things, it's sort of like a quest for you to find out, oh yeah, like this is the reason that I live, this is the reason that I am here. But in here, there are people who were sort of given the sight and given the hearing, and that meant that they knew the truth. He could see God's face, but he couldn't see anything else. And there was another man who could hear his words, and he could hear like everything but things that were going on around him. And it's an interesting concept. And this guy who like heard the words when he was getting his ears plugged, he couldn't hear like the truth coming onto him about everything, about the world, about the creation, about like everything literally that you could question ever. And he, like, when he had his ears plugged, he couldn't hear that, but he could hear his surroundings, which was like really, it was an interesting thing to like experience through reading and wonder about. And I just think that that was like super interesting and really cool. He basically like learned how to live with that, and he wanted to keep on living, but the person who like saw only God's face, because everywhere he looked he saw the truth. So when he looked at a human, he didn't see like a face like you see me right now, for example. He saw kind of like an aura, I guess you could say. Like he saw the truth about them. He saw the truth about who that human is. And like there was this one line, this is going to be like more explainable. You can't sit in the dark inside yourself forever. Come out. You can't choose blindness, Jerry. Why can't I? Not after you've seen the light. What light? The light, the word, the truth we have been taught to perceive and to know, Temsky said with the gentleness of utter certainty, and a warmth in his voice, and warmth like sunlight. That was like very pretty. And there was like another thing. Oh yeah, and this is where he says like this thing that I'm talking about right now, like that he saw like the truth of people, basically. I see you, he said, hide and seek. I spy, you're it. Do you want to know what I see? Yes, Shapir says softly. Shapir was a doctor who took care of this man. A blot, a shadow, an incompleteness, a rudiment, an abstraction, something completely unimportant. You see, it doesn't do any good to be a good man, even. Like, doesn't that just make you wonder? It's so good. I love it so much. The field of vision. What is the field of vision? What do you think? Hughes said very quietly, wearily. What is true vision of? Reality, of course. I have been reprogrammed to perceive reality, to see the truth. I see God. He sank his face into his hands, covering his eyes. I was a thinking man, he said. I tried to be a rational man, but what good's reason when you can see the truth? Seeing is believing. This is about the other guy who was called Temsky. He can translate what he hears, translate it into words. It's harder to do with visual perceptions. Mystics have always had trouble putting their visions into words, except the ones that got the word, that heard the voice. So yeah, this is the sort of thing that this story was about, and it was so interesting. I really, really loved it. This is another story that I really, really loved. Direction of the road. Now this one is from POV of a tree, and how the tree feels about the changes that happen in the world, like its surroundings, how like when things changed and cars started showing up, like people started hurrying and they stopped looking at the fact that there were trees there, that there were things beyond the things that they were hurrying to do and to go for and stuff like that. So it was a very interesting read, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I guess I can tell you right now that the next one is The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. And I've read that so many times, I'm not gonna get into it, but I can talk about it in some other video if you're interested in my thoughts about it, because I had many. I could do a separate video because it's taking me a long time anyway to talk about all of these stories. Story on like about the tree, I really, really liked where this went. It was super interesting that she could write this story from POV of the tree and make it so interesting and so like philosophical as well, because it did really make you think as well. Here we are. I have read the last story. Day before the revolution. And story, I was surprised to find out, is about one of the ones who walked away from Omelas. What? I had thoughts yesterday when I finished it, but I couldn't record them, so I can't remember what I was thinking. But this is, I feel like this is the sort of story where after leaving a place, because if you've read The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelette, which is like before this, you should know that in The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelette, there is a child who is suffering, just so everyone who lives in that city or town can be happy all the time, right? So your happiness is dependent on the suffering of that child. You're aware of it, like you know it, and this is your choice to stay in that town or leave. And there are people who leave, and this is about the lady who chose to leave. And I think that this is sort of like, felt a little bit like her trying to find ways to be happy again, and finding things that are trying to interfere with like that pure happiness that you could have had. So they're doing the revolution because they know that without the revolution, they won't be happy. There will be misery, you know, and they're kind of fighting for that happiness to be in other places as well, in a way, you know. Like, this doesn't make sense when I'm trying to put it into words. I don't know how to put my thoughts into words in this case, because it's like, I understand what this is supposed to be about. It's not only about revolution. At the same time, this is trying to figure out it, like, who she is, you know. She sort of became like that child in that town of Omelas. Yeah, as much as I love this story and I underlined so much of it, I understand it in my own way that I cannot put into words. And I've tried. I don't really know how to explain what I'm thinking this could be, but I think that they're just fighting for happiness, you know. The revolutions are happening so that, like, people are equal, you know, so that everybody can be happy in an equal way, you know, in a sense, you know. After a lifetime of living on hope, because there is nothing but hope, one loses the taste for victory. A real sense of triumph must be preceded by real despair. She had unlearned despair a long time ago. There were no more triumphs, one went on. So this is sort of like, I feel like this ties in a little bit to Omelas, because like, she had unlearned despair a long time ago. I feel like it's the fact that she always knew the happiness because of the suffering of that one child in Omelas, especially since this is like a person who left. Sort of, I guess, like, since there were no more triumphs, it sort of feels like she maybe allowed herself to be defeated, but rather like was just living in this middle ground, you know, where there was no despair, but there wasn't like happiness either, in a way. And one went on, you know. So that's sometimes what we all have to do. We just have to go on, because there's like, we can't reach either point, and it's better to be in that middle ground of just going on rather than being in despair, for example, right? Strikes for better wages, representation for women, votes and wages, power and money. For the love of God, well, one does learn a little after all in 50 years, but then one must forget it all. This was also super interesting. She liked the young, and there was always something to learn from a foreigner, but she was tired of new faces and tired of being on view. She learned from them, but they didn't learn from her. They had learned all she had to teach long ago, from her books, from the movement. This is another one that is like a very, very great quote. What was the good working for freedom all your life and ending up without any freedom at all? What is an anarchist? One who, choosing, accepts the responsibility of choice. And this also ties into Omelas very well, because like, you had a choice when you knew that this child was like suffering for your happiness. You could have left, or you could have stayed. And a lot of people chose to stay because it's easy to like sacrifice one person so they would suffer just so that I can be happy, which is completely like baffling, but it is easy for some people to do that sort of thing. I mean, you can see that it's something that is going on in our world even right now. There's this like lack of empathy and lack of kindness, and there is also this: she had never feared or despised the city. It was her country. There would not be slums like this if the revolution prevailed. But there would be misery. There would always be misery, waste, cruelty. She had never pretended to be changing the human condition, which is also very true. This was always going to be there unless you are living in Omelas and sacrificing a child to be forever happy. which is also kind of impossible to do. You can't always be happy, because the happiness is going to lose its meaning if you don't have any lows and some sort of like countering emotion, like on the other spectrum, if you know what I mean. So long as people were free to choose, if they choose to drink flybane and live in sewers, it was their business. She had known it, that she and the other kids and her parents and their parents and the drunks and the whores and all of River Street were at the bottom of something, were the foundation, the reality, the source. But will they drag civilization down into the mud? Cried the shocked decent people later on, and she had tried for years to explain to them that if all you had was mud, then if you were a god, you made it into human beings. And if you were a human, you tried to make it into houses where human beings could live. But nobody who thought he was better than mud would understand. You see, I think that this is also, like, I don't know how to explain it, but I was pondering about this when I read it yesterday. And I agree with this, because, like, we all start out at the bottom and then we can go up, right? But the bottom being the foundation is so true, because without the bottom you wouldn't know the high either. See, I don't know how to like explain what is happening in my brain. I feel like this is telling you that those people who are like on the lowest, like the mud, how like they called it here, are just as important, because they are the foundation of everything else, because this is where everything is coming from. But then when like you find ways to go higher, kind of forget where you came from, and that it was also the mud. And this is sort of like a fight for equality, you know, that these people like who are like lower, I guess, who are in the mud, are not worse just because they are in the mud. Because if you take care of the mud, if you take care of the foundation, then everything else like above it also gets better, and the mud also gets better, you know? Like, does that make sense? I don't know. Please let me know what you think about this if you've read it, and if you haven't and this like sounds intriguing to you or anything, please let me know like what you think about this quote, about like the quotes that I've read. This is something that like really intrigued me in the story, which is why this is like a 4.75 for that reason alone, and for questioning like who you are, and if like your body and who you are two different things, or if they are the same thing because you are your body. She, who was she? An old woman with grey hair and a red face sitting on a dirty doorstep in a slum, muttering to herself. True? Was that she? Certainly it was what anybody passing her saw, but was it she, herself, any more than the famous revolutionary, etc. was? No, it was not. But who was she then? The one who loved Taviri. Yes, true enough, but not enough. That was gone. He had been dead so long. Who am I? Leia muttered to her invisible audience, and they knew the answer and told it to her with wild voice. It was the little girl with scabby knees, sitting on the doorstep staring down through the dirty golden haze of River Street in the heat of late summer. The 6-year-old, the 16-year-old, the fierce, cross, dream-ridden girl, untouchable. She was herself. Indeed, she had been the tireless worker and thinker, but a black cloud in a vein had taken that woman away from her. Indeed, she had been the lover, the swimmer in the midst of life, but Taviri dying had taken that woman away with him. There was nothing left, really, but the foundation. She had come home. She had never left home. True voyage is return. How insanely beautiful is that? How insanely beautiful. There was nothing left, really, but the foundation. And I feel like this is where it all like ties in, that this is all about foundation. This is about foundation of who you are, who you were. This is about the foundation of like where people come from, and it's all about the foundation, because if you care about the foundation, then everything else is also kind of like, you know, cared for and better. I'm not sure if I'm like understanding this right, or maybe I'm not even thinking deeply enough about it, but this is what I think. She had come home. She had never left home. True voyage is return. Oh my god, it's like the return to yourself. This is so good. This is crazy good. And this is basically where the story soon ended. I'm not gonna show you because I almost spoiled you the ending. But yeah, that's the last story. And please let me know what you think about it in the comments. Despite me struggling to read it for so long, I really enjoyed this, and you are going to see that soon when like I start my thoughts in a moment. Which I've already recorded, but you're gonna see it in like a second basically. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. And I actually really liked it. Like right now that I'm sitting with it, I'm like, I really like this book. Like, I'm so glad I have read this. I'm not as, like, I don't think I'm gonna be a sci-fi fan yet. But I'm so happy. Like, so happy. Hi guys. So this is an update, obviously. But I wasn't home alone for a while, so I didn't film like anything. I was also ill a little bit. I just had like, you know, a cold. I think something is like trying to come back now as well today, which is really annoying. But I think you can hear that I sound a little bit different. So I'm like, you know, just FYI, I have my coffee here. I know that this is a reading book. I'm gonna get into the updates in a second. I heard that 27 is like your Saturn return year kind of thing. So there's a lot of like karmic resolutions or whatever. Like, I don't know. I can't really remember. I tried to not focus on that because I'm an optimist and I just prefer to believe that every day is going to bring good things. So I'm just not gonna think about the fact that I'm 27. This could be the year of like lessons and stuff like that. Like, please, I just I had a rough few years. I really don't need this. What I've read. This is going to be fun because if you watched my wrap up, you know that there's one book that I really wanted to finish in December, so that it would be on my wrap up, so that it would be gone from my TBR. So stay tuned for that. But there is one thing that I've read first, I think, before this. My Dear Curse Casting Vampiress Volume 2 by, who is that by? I keep on forgetting. Chisaki Kanai. I gave it a 4-star, right? I have this sort of love-hate with it. Not even hate, it's just like, I'm kind of like, meh, but also I like it sort of thing with this manga. It's a manga, if you didn't know. I think that the thing that sort of puts me off is the fact that it's very insta-love-like, and I don't really like that. I mean, it's okay if they say that, oh yeah, I think I have a crush on her, but they're like, oh my god, I'm in love with them. And it's been a few days or something, like, you know, it's kind of weird. Like, it's really weird. This manga is on the app Manga UP. Basically, like, if you know the app, there's a lot of things that you can read for free, but at some point you need like XP in order to read new chapters, or you need to wait to the date that is like below the chapter and then you can read it. But I did find the rest of the volume because, like, you know, when volumes are available, like, you can get them in other places than just these, but this is like fully for free and it's legal kind of thing. So it's pretty great. This is what it looks like. That would focus. Here it is. The world is full of vampires, supernatural creatures who drain the blood from humans without mercy. Fighting such beings is the foundation of Isuzu Osaka's life, but with humanity losing the war, desperate times call for desperate measures. To protect his friends, Isuzu sets out to strike a deal with Baroque, a powerful vampiress whose beauty is set to drive all who gaze upon her mad. And like, guess what, right? I told you that it feels very insta-love, like, I don't think I have to tell you anymore, right? So the first volume, I think I gave it like a 3-star when I read it. The second one is a 4-star because it was pretty action-packed and pretty fun to read. And as much as it's still like very insta-love, the characters are really cute. I enjoy that aspect because, like, I love the build-up to people being together, I guess. You know, which is why like dropping that they love each other but they don't know about it like so early on is sort of like yeah, you know, because like you don't know the person really. Like I get you can have a crush, but yeah, it's just that was sort of like annoying, I guess. Like I don't know. Besides that, it's a pretty fun thing to read. The vampire world is pretty nice to read about as well. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Like the action is pretty well done. The art style of the manga is super pretty. Like it's very pretty. So yeah, it's very nice to look at and interesting enough to keep you reading on and be curious about like more. That's the manga. And now, very exciting news. I have finished. Okay, finished this book. I finished the Guin's 12 quarters. Oh my god. Stop it. Finally. This is a book full of stories. It's the first collection of Ursula K, like Guin's stories. And I bought this book only because of The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, because I really wanted to have it because I love that story so much. But I did find a few other stories in here that I truly liked. And I was a little bit surprised by the fact that I liked them so much. Because I don't read sci-fi usually. It's not something that I would reach for in terms of books or movies or anything. But the movies I have seen that I think are sci-fi, I usually do enjoy. It's just that reading sci-fi is completely different. The writing of Ursula K. Le Guin's is super pretty. There are like some stories where I started just randomly underlining things because I like the way that like they sounded, and I like the way she thinks because her stories are very character driven. They're very like philosophical as well. And those are two things that I truly love when I read books and when I find new books and just when I read in general, right? And I was like pretty surprised that I loved some of the stories a lot, and I'm actually super glad that I have read this book. Now, the rating for this, I gave it a 3.5 stars. I know that this may seem a little bit harsh, but it's sort of hard to rate a collection of short stories because like I think it's inevitable that you are going to love some short stories more than others, and this was the case with this. As much as I would have given some stories like 4 stars because they were good, or like Omelas is like a 5-star story for me, there are some that are like just not for me at all, that went over my head and I didn't come back to at all either. That's the reason why I give it a 3.5. I'm going to start on like the stories right now, but overall this book I really enjoyed. If you want to try sci-fi, I would say it's awarded for a reason, and when you read this I feel like you will know why, but at the same time you are not going to love every single story that was awarded, for example. And I'm not a critic, obviously, I'm just a reader. I'm just a reader with my own thoughts on things, and like I love this book. I love this book for showing me that sci-fi can be different than like what we about when we hear sci-fi, because this isn't like sci-fi in terms of like world building and stuff like that. It's more sci-fi in terms of how human interactions are going to change, how like diseases are going to progress and apply to the lives of like people in the future and stuff. It's very philosophical and the character driven, like I said. Very good, you know, and I love this book for the fact that it's different, and for the fact that I got to experience these stories, because like some of the stories that I even read near the end are just so good, and some quotes are just so great, and it's just, I don't know, it's something that I haven't read before, I feel like. Since this is something from the genre that I usually don't read, I love it for the reason that it kept me, or that I kept myself going, so that I would experience all of these stories, and that I haven't given up and DNF'd some of them. I don't know if that even made sense, but yeah, I love this book for the fact that I got to experience this author's writing, that I got to see more philosophical things in a different sort of setting than just like our normal world or our past world, but rather like sci-fi, what could happen potentially in the future sort of thing. It was very interesting. It was very interesting, and it was very fun to read her thoughts before every single story. So I was actually like in the middle of reading one of the stories when I thought that maybe it would be fun to like read one of her other works. Like, but yeah, there's just a lot of books with short stories. Yeah, that's that. Let me check my favorite stories. I'm gonna tell you, since this is a reading vlog, and in the wrap up I'm just gonna mention this, like, that I've read it. Okay, first of all, this is a very pretty beginning to the collection of short stories. I actually like underline quite a bit. I haven't underlined anything in the beginning of the book because it was just not what I was doing when I was reading at the time. But then I was like, yeah, I don't really feel sorry for this book if I do write on it for some reason. I think 2 days ago when I was reading, I actually like went back to the first story for a minute, and like I underlined literally like the first sentences here. So I just really liked it, and I feel like I'm at a different place in my life now where I can appreciate some of these stories like way more than I would have if I've read them at the time when I was just reading the ones who walk away from Omelas, which is my favorite story, but I feel like now I can appreciate the other stories a lot more as well. So, my favorite stories from this book. April in Paris, because I really liked it. Word of Unbinding, I believe that I also liked enough to say this. Vaster the Empires and More Slow is a very pretty title, and I actually, when I was in the beginning of it, I was like, because I had this feeling of like things going over my head a lot when I'm reading this, because it's sci-fi, I'm just not used to it, and it felt just like crazy. In the beginning I was like, but then like it got so good that I underlined so many things. It was very good. The Stars Below was a very fun one. Field of Vision, also very fun one when it comes to like philosophical case of knowing the truth of why we're here, and the truth of like everything that we question is actually a good thing for us, you know? So that was a very good one. Obviously, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, which I haven't actually reread when I was reading this book, even though it's a short story, but I just read it so many times now. Maybe not that many times, but I love it so much, and even though I haven't reread it this time, I still, I still love it. And The Day Before the Revolution, because it's actually sort of a continuation of The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, which is actually like super fun. So yeah, I think those are the ones I liked. I might be forgetting something, but I don't think so. So that's this book done. And now you're gonna see me go on to another book. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but you will find out in literally a second. Reading update, guys. The craziest thing had happened in More Than a Married Couple But Not Lovers. Oh my god. Oh my god. I read it at 9 and I get so freaking excited. That was crazy. I cannot believe it. Like, I literally can't believe it. Jiro finally grew balls. We're winning. Oh my god. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Like, it's crazy just how happy I am about it, but I am very happy about it. I've been waiting for this moment for a few chapters now, which means for a few months, because this is a monthly manga. I read that. It was awesome. I was just so happy. Also, the manga is just so freaking pretty. Like, it looks so nice. I love it so much. And I love the characters a lot. I just grew so attached to them. I love them so much. Another one that I have read is The Ice Guy, chapter 55. It was also very nice. It's also a super pretty manga. My favorite character is Seijima, I think, or however you say it. But he's just so good. But obviously, like, you know, the main story is about Himuro and Fuyutsuki. There's that. It was a very fun chapter overall. And I think that means that I'm done with the volume that I've been reading, I believe. Which is volume 8. I think that's the end of the volume 8, but I'm unsure. So don't quote me on that. I still have to read the Kagurabashi chapters, so I need to catch up on that. I'm so happy about the chapter of More Than a Married Couple. Oh my god. Like, Akari deserves it. She deserves it. She deserves way better than Jiro, but in the sense that he was taking way too long. He was making the girl wait, and the girl is so cute. And she was about to be the first one to do something. But thankfully, he did it first, and I was just, that was so crazy. I'm so happy. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm reading this. That's The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And I just got this idea that this actually really reminds me. My hair is wet because I washed it, so excuse this. It actually really reminds me of Into the Magic Shop by James Sardotti, which is one of my favorite books ever, ever, ever. I love this so much. And I feel like it reminds me of that because it's a very similar concept. It's just that in Into the Magic Shop, it was the magic shop that you were entering, and there were people there who were teaching you how to unlock this power within you, right? Just like basically stepping into your subconscious and your conscious brain telling your subconscious that it can do things. Just wanted to say that really reminds me of that. And it's kind of crazy. Hi. So it's pretty late right now. 12:30 a.m. The funny thing is that I've posted the video talking about like 10 before the end, like 10 books that I want to read before the end of the year. It dawned on me that when that video went up, we were already pretty close to Christmas, which means that we are pretty close to the year being over overall. Which is crazy. It's insane. About 2 weeks to read all the books that I said, and it actually makes it a week that I have to read what I said that I want to read. The other week I'm gonna be at home and I'm not bringing these books with me. So it's just, it's insane. I think I'm just gonna, when I'm there, read Jujutsu Kaisen whenever I can. But I'm also gonna probably have homeworks from the course. I'm gonna see how that's gonna go, but I think that's what I'm gonna do. That's the update. I don't have any more updates. Just keep your fingers crossed for me that this is going to go well. Oh my god, guys. Guys. This is so painful. I'm reading You've Reached Sam. It's so painful. They make all these plans. This is so sad. Okay, this is going to be a very short update, but I'm reading You've Reached Sam, obviously. and I am currently 156 pages in. This is chapter 9. And for some reason, Oliver is giving me such creep vibes. I think he might have been in love with Sam. I don't know yet, but I think he might have been in love with him, not only being best buddies. But the way he's kind of acting towards Julie, like really, it gives me creepy vibes for some reason. I don't know why. And Julie is so annoying. She's such a weird character. Like, I understand that everybody goes through grief differently, but there's something about her and her attitude that is just really not sitting with me. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just reading, but the more I'm reading this book, the more I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just sort of put off by her, and I'm not sure if the creepy vibes and the way that she's coming off is because of the translation that I'm reading, or if it's like that just in the book in general. So let me know if you've had similar thoughts. I don't know, like there's something weird about her character as well, and I'm not sure what it is. Those are my thoughts at the moment. I'm almost halfway, so we'll see how this goes. Everybody, I hope you've been well. I was pretty bad at vlogging in December because at some point I was actually just back in my hometown, and there I haven't vlogged. I just have a few clips of me reading and freaking out about the manga that I was reading. I'm popping in here to finish up the video because I haven't done that, and I thought that it did need some sort of an ending. I managed to finish You've Reached Sam, which I don't have with me because I left it back there. Anyway, oh, also, I don't think you've seen this yet, if you only watch my vlogs, but you probably have seen it in other videos. So I've read You've Reached Sam by Dustin Thao, and as much as I love the concept of the book, I just didn't vibe with the characters that much, I guess. I really like couldn't sympathize much, but it's like I could understand the way that she was grieving was like completely different because like people grieve in different ways. But there was just something so weird about her. And then you've also had Sam on the other end, and he was just like him in her memories, and him, this is a spoiler, so like don't listen for a second, and him over the phone with her, they were two different people. I just like there was something so off about Sam over the phone versus Sam in her memories that just really put me off a little bit. Then there was also Oliver, who at first really seemed like he would just be a freaking creep, and at the same time, like the way that he was acting towards Julie and like the things that he was jealous about and stuff like that also gave me like, oh yeah, I think he was in love with Sam. Or there's the second option that he's just a freaking creep, because that's sort of how he seemed like. Obviously it's a little like odd to think, but he's just like, I don't know, there was just something off about him, and like I didn't vibe with that at first. Then he was okay, And there were like many characters that were actually okay. Like Mika was super super fun, and the other friends were like really really fun. And like those were the sort of people that I would prefer to read about than like actually Julie and Sam. Weirdly, there was just something off about that. But I did love the concept. I love seeing like different ways that people could potentially grieve. Yeah, I don't know. It was like good in that department, but it really had me not vibing with the characters that much. So I would like get emotional at times, which is like I think it's a given when you're reading a book of that topic. I don't know, it's sort of hard for me to say more about it because it was like, it was okay, but it wasn't like, I guess, reaching my expectations of it maybe. Like, not that I even had like many expectations when I was going into it. I just knew that it was going to be sad, but it wasn't even that sad. I mean, like I said, it had me emotional, it had me tear up, but I think it's just because like, you know, you can imagine what it would be like to lose someone. And some of us like know that from experience as well. But there's also like other people that we are also afraid to lose, you know? So I think it did a pretty nice job at describing like different ways of grieving and like the process of it, like how people could potentially act in those sort of situations. But I just didn't vibe with the characters. I wish that there were some like tweaks that maybe that would have made it a little bit better, but at the same time like it was an okay book, and I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. And then I read The Case Study of Vanitas number 62 by Jun Mochizuki. 62 as in chapter 62 because like I read it in chapters on the app on my tablet, and I gave it a 4-star. I love that this is like an introduction to a new arc, and I'm really excited for us to get like deeper into that arc, because the recent chapters, as much as they were fun because like The Case Study of Vanitas is back to being like put out monthly, it's also a little bit like underwhelming when it's not something that you can like freak out like hugely about, you know? There was that one chapter though where we had an Astolfo chapter. I was so excited about that. I loved that so much. Like, it was such a good chapter because we got into his past, and there was also Roland there, and I love Roland as a character as well. And like seeing him from this different side as well was just so cool. And that chapter was something that really excited me. There was like another one where like, you know, the characters look good or something, and it was like, oh my god, like he looks so good. But it's just that. But this chapter, I believe, was the one that like gets us so much closer to like getting into the arc deeper, which is awesome because that's exactly what I wanted, and it got like a little bit more like complex. And I truly like the way that this author writes, which is why this manga is like one of my favorites. Pandora Hearts is my favorite. I also read her first work, Crimson Shell, which was such a fun volume, and I kind of wish that she continued on with it because it would have been like also super cool to read about if it was like way longer and had an actual like long plot. I think that if she were to continue with Crimson Shell, like Pandora Hearts wouldn't happen the way that it did. So I'm also sort of glad because I love Pandora Hearts so much. And I'm gonna be reading that for a reading vlog. Like I said that I would do, I am catching up on Jujutsu Kaisen. And I did read 2 volumes when I was back in my hometown, and the way that I screamed in my head, like I screamed inside, okay? Oh my god. Just thinking about this, and the things that have happened in volume 18 and 19, which by the way I gave 5 stars to. Oh my god. Oh my god. Like, for me, a Fushiguro stan, those volumes were perfect. Like, I loved them so much. I love them so much. The amount of Fushiguro that we got, the way that we could see him from a totally different perspective, like he was like a different person. a little bit. And it was so fun to follow. And I just loved his reasoning behind all of it was just to save his sister. And it was like, it's such a nice goal for someone who's only had her as family. Well, besides Gojo, but like, you know, if you know, and if you're an anime watcher, you already also know Gojo is sealed. So like, sorry, he's out of the picture. So like, he literally only has Tsumiki for now. And that's why he wants to save her as well. She's been in a coma for a very long time too. So there's that whole shebang. But like, you know what I mean? Like, she's his actual like family and only one that he's got left. It's pretty heartwarming to see the things that he would do for her, you know? Just like, I love him as a character. Like, he's incredible to me. I don't know what to tell you. I was so hyped. And like, you could see me, I think, in the reading vlog portion. When I was reading that, I think that I did like vlog a little snippet. I was like, so, oh my god. It was crazy. And like the fact that Gege actually gave someone a curse technique that was about like constellations. I'm sorry, what? That was so cool. Also the panel with the constellation, like with the name of the star from the constellation, like you know which panel I'm talking about if you've read the volume. Okay, I did not expect that. I was so taken aback because I never thought that we were going to see what we saw, okay? Like, ever. I just, yeah, oh my goodness. It was so good. Like, I love these volumes so much. I honestly highly recommend that you start this manga if you like pain. Because let's be honest, that's all you're gonna get. Like, you're only gonna get pain. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. That's December for me. I have been reading, like, obviously past volume 19 as well, but I finished volume 20 in January. I really loved it. I like where things are going, and for now we are at the part where like these chapters actually feel like they are necessary, you know, like there are not filler chapters. But I did hear that, like, I mean, some people just like to complain, let's be honest, but I did hear that some people like don't like certain chapters because and like the manga and are dropping it or whatever because like the chapters just feel like they are filler and like, you know, there's no reason behind them much. For now, like these chapters, these volumes about Culling Game are like super cool, and I was really hyped reading those. Like I and some moments were also very funny. And I like how this balances like the dark with the humor. And it's actually super fun. It really reminded me of like the first time that I have started reading this manga last year after watching the anime, and yeah, it's great. There's a lot of dark and messed up things in it. Like for now, what I'm reading is getting very political as well. And it's just, yeah, I'm reaching the point of like it's certain thing happening that I know is going to happen because I spoiled that for myself. I know my spoilers at all, but yeah, I'm reaching that point, and I'm a little bit like iffy, I guess. That's that for December wrap up and December reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that even though this is like very late, it's not December anymore. It's probably not January anymore. I don't know. That you enjoyed it. Like maybe you took some recommendation from this video or something. And yeah, I hope your year started out super well. I hope you are doing well. I hope that this year treats you super well as well. And yeah, I'm gonna see you in my next video, which will be very soon, since I do have like quite a few things filmed and probably not posted just yet. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to, you can subscribe to my channel to not miss any more videos and click the bell icon so you can be notified whenever I post a new video. And yeah, I'm gonna see you in my next one very soon.